There we go. Alright, so tonight we're going to be refining this and trying to figure out better blocking for it. Just tested the audio, but unfortunately something seems amiss. What is going on? Alright, so the background never got triggered, and this never got triggered. There we go. Now we're all set. Problem of making your own tool is that you spend a lot of time trying to troubleshoot as to why something is going wrong. That's something I didn't consider when I was developing Silverado. Greetings there, Bastion. I hide here from light. You know, Bastion, it's not good to hide from the light. Oh, you mean light fury. Yes, you hide from the light fury, but don't hide from the light. How you doing, good sir? Hopefully your Saturday has been decent, and that your Sunday will be off to a good start. Tonight we're going to be merging this artwork together, trying to create a near final sketch to be able to build upon in the near future. For those that are new around here, this is a art redeem that happened years ago at this point. Years meaning like a year and a half. I've been meaning to get to this for a long time. And part of it was that I didn't have the skill to actually do it. But also part of it, well, a huge part of it, was that I didn't know what to put onto it. Because this would lock down some of the plans that I have. And couldn't do that if I'd be kind of retconning myself. Better to retcon when you are in the process of developing something than after you've published something. Been doing good. I got a bowl of ice cream. I remember hearing when I was a kid about how much sugar goes into ice cream compared to pecan pie. And it was interesting for me to discover, and now granted my parents never quite believed me when I told them this, but I mentioned that the amount of sugar in pecan pie was in very, very unhealthy numbers, and that ice cream was pretty benign by comparison. You could have something like 12 to 15 milkshakes compared to having a pecan pie. Now, granted, there's some other things other than sugar that you have to take into account, but I did find it kind of interesting how that happened. I do prefer ice cream over pie any day. Just don't double it with Doritos. I've seen what that does to people. It is... It makes people super overweight. Super overweight. Because there's something in having both of them. So like if you have a bag of Doritos and afterwards you say, I want to have a bowl of ice cream, apparently the two don't mesh well together. I updated this Clip Paint Studio, and I gotta say, it doesn't feel like I updated anything. There's no real major improvements. I was told there were several improvements, but not quite there. Yeah, I'm not going to texture it just yet. Actually, I shouldn't be texturing it at all. What we should be just focusing on is the shading. Well, I'm spacing. Is it next week or is it the week after? We have the next Blender Challenge coming up. And we still haven't had anybody that has been wanting to jump in on the competition. After this one, I'm going to start asking people if they want to participate. We're going to be hunting for some to see if there's anybody in particular that has an interest in wanting to do it. And now that I have, well, soon we'll have 3 different examples of what the streams are going to be like, it hopefully will make it more interesting for people and make them feel a little bit more comfortable about giving it a shot. Probably, though, for this next one, I'm going to be focusing on quite possibly rigs. Because I got an idea, and I think it'll work out well. Not for all participants, but it gives me a chance to kind of give an example of where things could go. I'm going to pull up my reference material here, because I'm starting to get to the point where I need to start making it a little similar. I guess with frozen yogurt and ice cream, it's one thing to see them load the machine with bags of cream to be made ready full of preservative pies in the store. You know, preservatives, so very weird. I was shocked to find out that a lot of the preservatives we currently have didn't exist, like, when I was a kid. I mean, there were preservatives, but nowhere near what we have now. It's honestly quite shocking. Okay, got my reference material. I would love very much to get rid of all preservatives in my diet. Alas, that would require a lot of effort from my part, and I don't really have that time to be able to dedicate towards it. One thing I do have that a lot of the country doesn't have is easy access to salmon. Well, salmon don't really have a whole lot of preservatives in them, you know, except for natural ones. It's called a freezer. That is our effective way of preserving stuff. So here's a question for you. Let's say somebody comes up to you and says, you know what? Your reputation precedes you. We want to hire you to make the next big blockbuster. How many of us would jump at that if we were told, we have chosen you? You're going to make the next blockbuster film. What is it? Oh, well, obviously, we're going to provide you it. I mean, we have the producer already figured out. We just need the director to figure it out, to bring it into reality. And then after talking with them, you learn that the project is something you have no background in. Let's say that you are, let's say you're an engineer, and someone asks you to make the next fantasy epic. I know a lot of people that would say, absolutely, I would jump on board with that idea. I really think that I can do something that no one else can. Most of us would say something like that. Glad to see that my sock puppet films will take me to the main stage. I mean, hey, that's what happened to Jim Henson, so don't discount your sock puppets there, Bastian. But you find out after a while that they want you to make something that's way outside your wheelhouse. Kind of like an engineer being tasked with a fantasy story. They may jump at the idea, but the moment they sit down and have to start pondering it and start putting pen to paper, I've heard about so many people who get in over their head. They think they can write it. Then in the end, they end up hiring somebody else to write it. And then they start directing it, and they feel like it's going to be a success. But because they didn't have a role in the writing of the script, or even just the editing, it ends up being bad. I saw a movie recently that did this in a way. It was Sonic number 3. Not the first two ones I really enjoyed. I really enjoyed the first Sonic, and I enjoyed the second Sonic. I did not like the third. The third Sonic was bad. Or at least it was somewhat bad, in the sense that it had nothing to contribute. But it had a compelling villain. It was exciting, it was fast-paced. It was a story that lacked conviction, editing. It's not the worst film I've ever seen. By no means. But it got a lot of praise, and I don't think that it deserved any of it. It was a repeat of every other gag done by Sonic up until that point. It had nothing new to contribute. Kind of like if somebody is unfamiliar with the subject and they just say, well, let's just repeat what happened beforehand. They're too afraid to take the story somewhere else. And that is what I felt happened with that story. I mean, maybe it didn't. Maybe it wasn't done in that way. Maybe they actually did feel compelled, and after doing some test audiences, they're like, hey, we need to change this. I mean, that might have happened. But it really didn't feel like they even understood the characters. They bought kind of the rights to... they had the rights to do it. They bought the team to produce it. And then when it's all said and done, they're like, yes, we got an epic on our hands. It's great. It's going to be $1 billion movie. And sure, it made a lot of money, but it was not compelling. It was not good. Again, it was better than others, better than a lot of stuff that Disney's been putting out, but it was not anywhere close to what I would have wanted it to be. Because the story lacked any sort of uniqueness, some sort of identity to make it stand out from the first two. I was very disappointed with it because I felt like they were set up for perfection. They could have done it so well, and they didn't do even half of what I wanted it. Now, you might remember I had quite a few negative views about how The Mandalorian went, as did the Ahsoka series. I mean, they had great points, but the great points were overshadowed by the bad. I got very frustrated with that from a fan standpoint, because I felt like they had been given all the opportunity to make something great, and they actively chose to avoid some of the stuff that they're making. They're trying to avoid really taking some of the stuff they're making to its full conclusion, lest they lose people along the way. I feel like that was a huge mistake on their part. There's another company that has been dealing with this problem. The one that I've not been paying any attention to. It's the Daily Wire. Now, if you've heard me talk about the Daily Wire before, you know I have a very negative opinion of it. I do not like the Daily Wire. I think they had... they made a couple of good products, but the majority of it was just bad. It was very much designed to be kind of like rage baiting and focusing on a form of right-wing propaganda. Now, I'm a conservative. I lean more towards the right. But it was just blatant propaganda. And I'm somebody that's... I'm not quite center, but I'm more balanced towards the center than I am to the far right. But their stuff was just... It was almost like it was trying to bait people into saying terrible things, into agreeing with very harsh viewpoints. And it didn't leave any opportunity to have dialogue. It was just a verbal beatdown. Well, Jeremy Boring is no longer going to be leading the Daily Wire, as we understand from this last week. He's stepping down, or being forced out, we don't know. But he is a messed up man. A very proud man. A very prideful man. He's somebody that is trying to make a film series, or mini-series, or whatever it is. The Pendragon series is what it's called. And it just sounds dumb. He's somebody who doesn't know what he's doing. And in my personal opinion, based upon the products they have made, he's never known what he's doing. And he invested millions of dollars from people that were willing to help contribute to the vision, and I feel like he robbed them in that sense. Not directly, of course, because people have the right to make investments even if it's into bad individuals. But it's very malicious in that sense, because he promised the moon and he had a massive fortune to make it happen. I promise things and I am still trying to make them happen, like this. I may not be right on top of the ball of getting it done, but at least I like to think that for doing this stuff more or less for free, I'd like to think that I'm following up with these ideas, that I'm getting a chance to make good on my words, even if it does take a while. But Jeremy Boring, he had the money, he had the investment, he had the team. And he just squandered it. Like so many other studios that I've heard about, where they think that they're going to arrive. They make the taunt to Hollywood. We're here, we challenge you, we're gonna do better than you. And then they make the same old stuff, just from the opposite side. Look, I do not like liberal stuff. I do not like anything that's woke. I don't like things that are socialist. I don't like things that are communist. But nor do I like the idea of people that are like hyper patriotic. Why? Because I'm first and foremost a Christian. Christians can be patriotic, but we have another home first and foremost. My home is not here. My home is to come. My home is not of this world. It's of God's kingdom. As such, I will live in this world as long as I am meant to, but I'm not going to be so attached to it that I think that somehow I can create a paradise here if I just follow a conservative rule book. Because human beings are flawed, and the moment that you start to think that you've made a paradise, even if whether you are a hardcore liberal or if you are a staunch patriotic conservative, you will never, ever be able to achieve perfection. That's why it's important for someone like Jeremy Boring to not be so cavalier with some of his projects, with some of his ideals, because it's a bit destructive when you take into account that people throughout history are always trying to do things like what he's doing, and they always have a similar end. The moment pride gets involved, everything starts to fall apart. And for him, there is a massive amount of pride. I mean, golly, the fact that he kept calling himself the God King is troubling enough. I mean, I've mentioned the problem that I have with that title, God King, to begin with, because people try very much so to use it on Trump. And I hate that title. That title is one of the worst titles I've ever heard in my life. One of the worst titles I've ever heard used in history. Golly, in the Book of Doom, where that reference comes from, it's like a bad reference. It's a dark reference. So I don't like the fact that people are using it so cavalier. So again, like I mentioned about earlier, let's say that you did receive that that directive that you get to make the next great epic. What if you try and approach it from the opposite side of that? Rather than thinking that you can do it, you think, hey, you know what? I don't know what I'm doing, but I'm willing to give it a shot. I'm willing to learn along the way and get better at it. I'm willing to listen to counsel. Well, you're probably going to end up making a lot more success that way. It's still not guaranteed. That reminds me of a fella that I was making short films with. This happened many years ago, and he was a good fella, honestly. I do not slight this guy's character. I do not think ill of his creativity, but he was not a leader. And if you are not a leader, that can become a huge problem as well. You can be able to be humble and listen, but if you don't have leadership skills, well, you're going to end up making a lot of mistakes along the way because people that are leaders are going to exploit it. Or people that are bossy will try and exploit it. By the way, if you find any of this artwork interesting, or the stories or whatnot, would you consider liking or disliking? That way I get a chance to know that you're flesh and blood rather than bots. And I hate bots. So even if you dislike it, I will accept it, because it meant that you're here. It meant that you listened. I may not be happy about it. I mean, everybody wants to see that they've done well. To not to have immediate success is a bit discouraging to people. But I would rather have people be honest and to have shown that they're here, because this world is fake feeling right now, and any chance we get to feel like the world has people that are listening, that means a lot. It's very easy to go through life and imagine that somehow you are interacting with folks, and it's easy to just keep that sort of mentality, then find out later on that, oh, there wasn't anyone there, but you were certain that there was. It's easier to go through life and say, oh yeah, there's obviously people that are there. Because the moment you realize that there's no one, you get discouraged and you lose your motivation. That happened to someone that I know on Twitch. He went from having thousands and thousands of views per video. He went down to just 2. Because it turned out they were all bots. Bots are evil. And I am grateful for the fact that people are starting to pick up on that, and that it's not as big of a problem as it once was. But at the same time, some platforms, it's a bigger problem than ever. But it is being cracked down, thankfully. After a long time, it's finally being cracked down upon. Gotta reset this rotation. There we go. Alright, let's get a rig out there. Just a little bit. faster. Actually, wait a minute. No, I don't want that. I want to do this from scratch. Let's just decrease the saturation, the opacity. Alright, here we go. Just draw from scratch. It's amazing just how difficult it is to try and draw on this screen. I mean, it's the size of a small a little bit smaller than a page, but it makes it very difficult to be able to properly scale things. For whatever reason, I think part of it is that it's lowish resolution because this is an earlier Wacom tablet. That's a part of it. I think the other part is that it feels unnatural. That's why the final is going to be on paper. Because on paper, I can draw things that are smaller than what's on this tablet, but I feel like I have more control. Because this stylus is bulky. It doesn't quite do its job as well as a pencil. Still useful. You get a chance to scale things and get to erase things over and over again. But when you draw it with a pencil, another level of quality takes over. So part of the reason why this whole thing took so long to come about, to get to this point where I can draw it, is because I needed the story. Milo's past was given kind of off the cuff. I had a basic idea of what his past was going to be like. But it wasn't until Rolling Chairs actually made the Redeem, asking about it, that I realized, oh, now I actually have to solidify this story. And so I started telling the story from start to finish, of which only about maybe a little less than 50%, maybe 40% of the story is still there. The rest of it got twisted and changed because it didn't contribute to the story I wanted to tell with Milo moving into the future. So, I had to figure out where Milo was going before I could go back and write the past, because I want the past to directly influence who he becomes in the future. I want it to be that when you, from the very beginning of the story, you see how it's going to end. There's a lot of parallels that are in that story. It's been fun to piece together. Really fun. But the process of planning things and actually doing it is starting to come to an end. And that's why I can actually start to do this, because the story exists now. Even if it's not finalized yet, the basics of it exist. During Milo's adventures, there's going to be some time in which the audience gets to see a little bit of the past of how Milo the character came to be. Some of it you're going to see in this picture right here. But a lot of it's is going to be a little bit different than you may remember. Because I want things with Milo to be a historic fiction. Meaning that it is relatively accurate to history, even if it is a fictitious story. I want people to come away from it feeling like they've learned something. You saw that actually a little bit with the roleplay. I didn't do the roleplay per se. I need to hide somewhere. Oh no. Poor Bastion. He hears the light knocking at the door, saying, Bastion. Poor fella. But anyway, I wanted people to come away with an understanding of their history, even if it was just basic. So during the roleplay, one of the things that took place was there were some references to the adventures of Lewis and Clark. There were some references to how the Pony Express was functioning, because the game of Red Dead, which served as the platform of doing the roleplay, is not a very accurate representation of the West. In fact, it is atrocious, abysmal sort of references. And it's also twisted history. I saw some people are arguing that there's more truth to the Red Dead world than people would like, than people think. No, it is wildly inaccurate. Wildly inaccurate. But unfortunately, not a whole lot of people are going to be helping to correct that. Why? Because historians have been canceled because they're trying to offer the correct history. I got to see a lot of the West firsthand. I got to see Pony Express stations. I got to see forts that were set up by Lewis and Clark. I got to see battlefields. I got to see I got to camp in a wide range of terrains. It may not seem like it, but I am incredibly well traveled in terms of having been in the American West. I grew up on Wild West films, on books, on listening to stuff about history of the American West, and I took multiple history courses about U.S. history, and a big portion of it being on the West. I am not an expert, but I am somebody who has been a casual listener of the stories of the American West, and every time I hear somebody tell a story about it, I get angry because it's inaccurate and no one cares. I'm like, so when I was doing the roleplay, I heard people in a variety of different places kind of talking about how they find it fascinating about like all the gunslingers of the Old West. Gunslingers were one part of the West. It was a relatively small part of the West if you think about it. But their mark on history was huge. But there was a lot more that took place. The railroad was a gigantic part of it. And granted, there were good and bad aspects of the American Railroad. Most of it was good, but there were a lot of bad things that took place. We tend to assume that things are good or bad based upon public perception. People like to say history is written by the victors. No, it is not. Now, I can go into a huge rant about why it's not, but suffice it to say, I have seen more people who are not the victors writing their version of history, and that getting told more so than even the victors. As such, there are things about the American West that get overlooked. Good things and bad things. One of the bad things that gets overlooked all the time in recent years is the savagery that took place among the American Indians. Now, I think the American Indians had some great tribes, but they tended to be more towards the north. The ones in the south were brutal and harsh. The ones in the far west, brutal and harsh. The ones in the east were relatively peaceful, but it didn't start that way. They were brutal and harsh, but they were decimated by tragedies. And so by the time Europeans came around, they were a little bit more accepting, because they realized that there was nothing they could do. And so they were a little bit more engaging. But there were still bad things that took place. Well, recently we've seen a big push about European settlers were bad, and that's it. That's the end of the story. Well, now there's a twist in that, because now people are saying, "Oh well, it was good, and now we need to rekindle that and have the American population swapped out again with new immigrants." And I'm like, folks, that's not going to go so well, because in the end, it's not about whether or not you're replacing somebody with immigrants. It's about whether or not their culture that they bring with them is good or bad. A lot of Native American cultures have good elements to it, but there's a lot of very dark things in their culture as well. And that's part of the stuff you will not hear talked about very often. And when you do hear it, it's usually cleansed because people want the Americans to be the bad guys and everything. But again, there was good and bad aspects. Some people did really good things on both sides, on all sides. And many people did horrible, horrible things. The American cavalry, for example, they did great things. They saved a ton of lives. They also led to the demise of many Native American peoples in horrible ways that should not have happened. Of which you can see there's some historic renditions that do that part fairly well. And ironically enough, one of the best examples I can think of is Last Samurai, because they actually reference the Native Americans. And it's actually a compelling part of his arc, of where you see the main character having to come to terms with the tragedy that he participated in. But at the same time, there's still savagery that took place, and you see a little bit of that being at least acknowledged. So you have to have a balance. Well, nobody has really been doing a balance with the American West in recent years. A lot of it has been Hollywoodized, even more so than the old spaghetti westerns. At least the old spaghetti westerns had actual cowboys that would come to the set to teach people about what was happening. John Wayne, actually, and Clint Eastwood both got a chance to talk with actual cowboys, in which they got to model a lot of their personalities off of. There's some interesting documentaries about that sort of stuff. But also there's another thing about after the roleplay took place, that really made me want to go back and tell a story. It had to do with the fact that there were some great epics out there about the American West, and people were not familiar with them, or they were short and they didn't really have a compelling narrative to it. And so I wanted to go back, use Milo as sort of a way to explore some of the best aspects of Western media, and to tell it in a single compelling narrative that adds in some of the most overlooked aspects of the American West. That's where the concept for Milo really started to change. And that took place after about probably the 7th or the 8th stream was when I started actually thinking about that. It was tough because I didn't know what to do with kind of that idea, because I was like, well, who's going to want to hear a story about a guy doing role play of a cowboy trying to reference these things? And that's where more recently I realized, oh, there is another option. But I just didn't have the confidence to do it early on. And I'm almost there. I managed to survive with only a dent from the bonks. You know, I feel, Bastion, like those bonks may be light trying to tenderize you. Because, you know, when you want to make a good meal, you have to tenderize the meat. And since you're a duck, I think she may be thinking of making, like, duck under glass or something like that. You might want to be careful. I made a stupid GIF earlier today. I was experimenting with some some rigging techniques, and made this dumb little thing. Stand by. All right. This right here. It may not seem like much, but it actually is a huge improvement in terms of rigging. This incorporates some incredibly difficult things that I've been fighting with. And it has to do with the feet, which is why it's about kind of mostly focused on that. If you look at what the feet are doing, they have multiple points of control. The fact that the foot can do that is actually really challenging to do. And I've not seen a whole lot of great tools to do this with. So I actually had to make my own method, basically combining other people's techniques and then adding in some of my own. And so I was experimenting with that. This is going to be incorporated into the feet of the snowball character. So anyway, that was something I was working on earlier today. It's actually I'm excited. I'm ready to open up that file again. Once the next Lego project is done, we're going to be opening that one up. Which, by the way, those Lego renders are still bugging out. I've been slowly rendering it, but man, it is. I'm going to go back and change a bit of how my rendering system is working, because man, every time I open it up, it's crashing. And I need it to work better because, well, you can't have animations if it keeps crashing. You can't animate something and then just call that good. You have to see it through to conclusion. And I'm not really able to do that, so during most nights I'm trying to figure it out a little bit more. So it's not done, but nor has it stopped. It's not like some of the other past projects where I had to put a pause on them. But it is something where it has been incredibly frustrating, because every render is coming out beautiful, but it crashes so often, it causes so many glitches that I'm like, okay, I need to figure out a better method. And I think I figured that out. And for those that are in the animation world, I think you're going to find this a bit interesting, because I'm going to be incorporating that into some of the other projects as well, to try and streamline those. Does not feel very authentic, but it's more me just trying to figure this stuff out again. I need to bring in a bit more of make things a little bit more of an organic feel to it. Okay, let's do the next part of this. I have liked the fact that so many people have asked questions about Milo. Not as much as it used to, but that is because the character's been absent for a long time. And so hopefully, this will satisfy the itch that many people had, even though it is many years since it took place. During the stream, the anniversary stream for Castor Craft, I'll actually mention a bit of where Milo stands, just a bit, about where the story is and what you can expect. It'll only be mentioned on there. I won't mention it after the fact until it's, all said and done. But I'll be giving a bit of an update on that. I gotta pull up my reference of Milo so that way I can make sure to stay accurate to the character sheet. Where did I put that? Castor Craft. Here we go. Pretty sure this is it. Nope, not there. Okay. It's not there either. Well, this is a problem. Where's my sheet? Under here. Okay. Okay, that's interesting. that be missing? Golly. Okay, I need this. This is a bit problematic. I'll be right back. I gotta figure out where I put this. I know I have a physical copy of it somewhere. All right. So the physical copy of it, I can't find right now. It's somewhere around here. I got a Milo. Sorry. I have a bunch of Milo stuff. And it's kind of scattered here and there. I need to start consolidating it. That's interesting. We're going to be going for about another half hour, roughly, because I need to get the next set of renders finished, well, set up, so I can render overnight. We might do something tomorrow. We might not. We'll see. But this next week, we're going to be beginning the earlier streams. Today wasn't one because I couldn't get back in time, but this next week is officially where that begins. Right now it looks like we're going to be making it about an hour or two earlier. So expect that there's going to be some more production related streams that will happen as a result of that. And if we have an interest for more community games, I know we're downscaling a bit of it, but if there's interest, we're going to try and incorporate that as best as possible, but the majority of it needs to be on work. the earlier streams, there also might be a chance that we'll do more than just the standard 2 during the week. Oh, here it is. Oh, golly. No duh. Of course it's going to be right here. A place I wasn't expecting it. All right. I look forward to doing this one in pencil and in pen and paper, because, golly, my pencil skills are better than my digital, and I'm always reminded about that when I see the comparison of the two. I'm like, wow, I suck when it comes to digital. Never underestimate what a pen and paper can, what pen and paper can do. Sure, this may speed things up. You don't need a pen and paper to get the job done. You don't even need a scanner. You just need some way to get it and digitize it, but you can use a camera. I did that early on. In fact, let me pull up a piece of artwork I did back in the day before tablets were really an option. So this is going to be interesting. You're not going to see a whole lot of this. Again, just because. Rest is the only way to escape now. Good night. Rest well, Bastion. We'll see you next time, whenever that is. Stay away from the light when she's angry. Where would I have put that? It was a big folder. It would be under here. Games. Here we go. Game development. Okay. Wait a minute, that's inaccurate. Where is it? Well, now, that's a problem. I'm gonna have to hunt for that later on. That's missing. That's actually a bit concerning to me. Why would that be gone? That means it's somewhere in a hard drive that I haven't properly stored. Here's something. Oh no, it's not even close. Oh wow. Okay. Well, I'm going to find that and bring that up next time, because it's actually a really interesting example. next year, for the anniversary of Castor Craft, is going to be a bit bigger. Because hopefully the first big project will have come out, and I'll have more to talk about. This year is going to be a little underwhelming, in my personal opinion. But it will be better than the announcement of Castor Craft, because that went over horribly. Man, that was abysmal. I cringe. I looked at that again afterwards, and I hated it so much. I spent so many hours planning that thing out, and I didn't even realize it was being broadcast at a 160 resolution, or whatever it was. It was puny. It was so bad. I had no idea. I don't always get to hear about whether or not a stream is working or not. So whenever there's an error, it's always appreciated when people say, hey, there's something bugging out, because I can't see it. Not until after it's said and done. But that day, I wish very much that I had not... I wish I had designated somebody as like my eyes and ears for that. Even if I had to pay them for it, it would have been beneficial at that time, because it went over so poorly. Well, maybe it's best that the whole thing went so badly, because the chance of things being worse isn't going to be likely. It's now going to get better. It has been getting better, slowly but surely. But it is embarrassing just how bad that was. Here's something to think about. If you were to is this life supposed to be perfect? And I know I referenced this earlier for the other discussion about perfection and whatnot, but is it supposed to be that you go through life and everything is happy for you, or everything is successful for you? Are you supposed to go through life and say, oh, I messed up, I should have tried harder, I should have struggled more, because now I missed out on the opportunities? I've heard people say that quite a lot. You have to work harder because, you know, you don't want any regrets when it comes to the end of your life. You know what's really interesting is that the days that I worked my hardest, that I feel like, yes, I've actually done something where it's foolproof. I couldn't have done it any better. I worked hard. I got it perfect. You know, I used to think that was possible. And then so many things have gone wrong in life, in one way, shape, or form. So many things failed that I was left stumped and thinking, well, but I tried. I worked hard at it. I spent countless hours. I forego sleep to pull off something. I spent all my time just planning something out. I dedicated everything to making sure that something is perfect. And then it doesn't happen. And it's as if you had never even done a thing for it. It was so bad, or other factors prevented you from ever getting a chance to succeed. Have you ever experienced that? I just say we all have, but not all of us like to think about it. In a way, Milo's one of those characters that struggles with that. I realized this a couple of years ago, that you could be someone who tries your best, who thinks that you're going to have a certain way of life, a certain level of success, and things never work. And no amount of effort is ever going to change that. He's a bit of a tragic character in that sense. And he epitomizes a lot of these lessons that I learned. Because you're never, ever going to be able to force your way into success. But you do have the ability to be faithful through it all. See, God is the one who gets to decide whether or not you're successful or not. You spent months animating a short that now doesn't want to come out, that now is stuck in renders. You spent all your time trying to perfect it, trying to get it clean, and the moment that you have to then rely upon someone else to try and pull it off, or something else to pull it off, it doesn't work. And then you're left thinking, why? I put the effort in, I put the time in, I struggled, I made it work. I found solutions, and every time in dragging feet through the muck of the mire, nothing ever moves forward. But see, there's a reason for that, even if you don't understand it. Now, I don't claim to understand these things. I am definitely someone who is confused about a lot of them. But you know what? Over the last couple of years, I went from being distraught over it to realizing I'm not the one in control of it. God is. And if He doesn't want that to happen, no amount of struggling, no amount of fighting is going to make it happen. And who knows? That struggle that God is putting you on might be for a very specific reason. It may be trying to teach you perseverance. It may be it may be about trying to see whether or not you're dedicated. I've known people, they start on their first full-length feature film. They have all the people there. They prove themselves. They wrote the story. They acted in it. They got all this high-quality equipment. Everybody was involved, and everybody had a blast. And yet, after it's all said and done, your project failed. And then you start to assume that failure is going to happen again and again and again. What do you do in that moment? What do you do in the moment when you realize that all that effort, all that struggle was for naught? Are you going to go out and curse the Lord for it? Or are you going to curse yourself? Or are you going to say, you know what? This happened for a reason. And I don't know what that reason is. And I might not know that reason for a long time to come. There are some mysteries that I'm still waiting for answers. But you know what I've noticed? Eventually the answers start to come. And when you start to know the answers, you're like, you know what? I'm glad I didn't know that answer back when I wanted to know it. Not everything's going to be perfect. Sometimes God holds back on us because we are in the wrong. And He's waiting for us to be corrected. And then He starts to restore it. It doesn't always happen. But I have noticed over the last couple of years, a lot of things I thought were out for the count that come back, even if it's just for a brief moment. They come back and they shine for almost like a reminder, like, don't worry, God has not forgotten. Then it does get discouraging when it gets snuffed out again, and you're like, well, wait a minute, I thought the wait was over. I thought it was going to be returned, and then it doesn't happen. Are you going to curse something for it? Or are you going to praise God for it? See, one of the biggest struggles in life is to say, no matter what happens, I will be thankful and praise God for it. Good or bad, rich or poor, I'm going to look at life and say, God has a reason for this stuff to happen. And it's not my duty to find out as to why it is so terrible, or why it's so frustrating, or why it's so stagnating. My goal is to figure out what is my role in that. And in doing so, we may start to find that God has a very, very important role for us. We just wouldn't have noticed it if we were not to lose something. We all have dreams. Many of you are familiar with some of my dreams. But I also realize that it's not guaranteed. And I'm not going to pretend like it is guaranteed. If it was guaranteed, then, well, then something happened and it failed. Which, you know what, that very well may be the case. But I'm more likely going to have to assume that there's something else as to the reason why. See, a couple years ago, I realized that a lot of people just naturally assume that we're meant to be in this life to be prosperous, to be successful, or whatnot. Everyone's looking for the meaning of life. And everyone keeps forgetting that our main mission in life is actually to bring glory to God, to worship Him, to be able to seek Him out. That is the number one goal in our life. Everything else becomes meaningless by comparison. And you can hear tragedies of people who pursued everything worldly only to be disgraced in the very end, and to say that they wish they had done anything else other than pursue their dream. So I have dreams. I think that I could do great good with some of those dreams. But what if that's not what God wants? Well, you may have to sacrifice your dream. You may have to say, well, Lord, if there is a reason for this dream, I'm willing to accept it and to pursue that path. If there is none, help me to learn to live without it. Sacrificing your own desires, that is an important part of this life. To decide that your well-being is not what you are here for. Do we all want to be successful? Yeah. Do we all want to have meaning? Yeah. Do we all want to have family? Well, most of us, yeah. Do we all want to feel that we are valued? Yes. Do we all want to feel that we are loved? Yes. How many of us want to feel like we are hated? Wait a minute. That's a weird thing to ask. Well, at the same time, it's not. See, if you're hated, that means you're doing something right. I learned that the hard way. I was like, why do people seem to test me? Now, not as many people do that anymore, but there's a long time when I was like, I got so many negative criticisms, and they were for the most mundane things. I was like, well, what is going on? Well, I noticed that there was one thing that was very common among all of them. They were all very, very worldly. And I was resisting the world, and that made them angry. It doesn't happen as often, and maybe it's because I'm on the wrong path. Or maybe it's that it was a test to try and see if I was ready to move on to the next challenge. I don't know. But there's things like that we may not realize that it's actually an important part of our growth. So when it comes to some of the dreams that I have, for example, there are a great many dreams where I think, well, obviously there's good that can be done, but a lot of times in my mind, I start to jump the gun on it. And I start to think about, oh, well, it has all the potential for X, Y, or Z, and I have it all figured out about how all these things are going to merge together, and they never actually come about. But then I'll hear about people that do get their dreams fulfilled. It's like every wish that they ever had all comes to pass in a moment. They get thousands of dollars, millions of dollars sometimes. They get the ability to make their dreams a reality. And they fumble it so badly that they never do it again. And when you see that, you can't help but wonder, am I being spared that? Maybe. Maybe not. But we won't know that until life is all said and done. When we are in the afterlife, we will get to know what all that was for. There's going to be an accounting for everything we did in life, all the good and the bad. I'll bet it'll probably be a combination of both a joyous celebration and a humiliation. I think a lot of us are probably all holding on to things that we shouldn't. I know I myself find that there are many things I need to be able to cast aside that I have been unwilling to do at times. And there's other times where I'm all gung-ho about it. I'm like, yes, get rid of this. Let's move on. Let's do things that are better. Lord, what is it that you want me to get rid of? I will do it. And then other times it's like, but I don't want to get rid of that. But in the end, we're all going to be held accountable for it. What things we cling to God about and what things we cling to the world about or cling to our own desires or whatnot. Some of the worst things that probably be remembered in our generation is the hate, the lust, the depravity, the greed. These things are probably going to be a mark of shame upon us in this generation. And one day when we are judged before God, is that we're going to see a lot of us that mess that up horribly. But you know what? A great many people will have had huge mistakes like that. And mercy will come into play. In a life that feels like it was completely wasted and worthless will have been used for God's glory, and you may not have realized it. That's why the most important thing is to be able to consider about where your soul is going to end up. Maybe that's one of the reasons why people struggle so much with this. We want so much to think about things that we can benefit from, that we can be able to say, yes, I did this or I did that. I made this movie, I wrote this book, I made this art, I built this building, But how much of that is actually going to matter in the end? If it's not serving as testimony, it's probably not worth it. Probably. Especially nowadays. I said it would be about half an hour, and we're at that point. So The reason why we're doing this again is because we're trying to get the look and the feel before we put pencil to paper. This is not going to be what the final looks like. It's just going to be the rough of what it is, and then I can be able to print it out, use it as my guide, and then I can start the process of actually drawing it on paper. Anyway, we're going to bring this to an end. Thanks, folks, for coming by. Dislike the video as you see fit. And we'll see you next time. A reminder that on the 7th of next month, we are going to be having an anniversary stream. It's probably not going to be all too exciting, although it is something where I hope that it will get bigger and better as time goes on, God willing. And if He's not wanting it to get bigger and better, then I accept whatever it turns into, as long as it is honoring of basically the vision of trying to help service family entertainment, or the ministry potential that it has. So anyway, we're going to end it there. Have a very pleasant evening and morning, everybody. Be civil to one another. And don't get too discouraged when things go wrong. There might be a reason for it. And when you come to the end of life, you may be shocked at how meaningful your life actually was. Until next time, folks, have a very pleasant evening.